Hey guys, Nick here, and today we will be truly testing the dynamic of Rick and Shane in this particular timeline, with Sophia not being a walker in the barn and Rick not having to put her down. Will the dynamic between Rick and Shane truly change, or is Shane doomed to die? This is part 2 to What If Sophia Joined Negan. Now, in the last episode, there were roughly little to no changes, really, because besides Sophia not being there, it really wouldn't change anything until we got to the whole barn scene, in which Shane shows his true motives, breaks open the barn, and then Sophia originally would be in there. But because she isn't and Rick doesn't have to put her down, not only does that change Rick's character development, but it also changes the dynamic between Daryl and Carol, because this means that Daryl's not going to be all mad at Carol, Carol's not going to be so depressed, and feel sorry for Daryl risking his life. It's really going to amount to a lot. And Carol is going to still be lingering on the hope that this is pretty much a blessing that Sophia wasn't in that barn. And even though she is starting to slowly think that her daughter might be dead, this could be very well a chance for her to be alive out there somewhere. Now, Shane, I can't really say how he would feel at this moment in time. All I can say is that he's still lingering to his perspective on Sophia just being dead. And even though she wasn't in that barn, which he would have had no idea what to begin with, he said so himself, he still thinks that she's dead. We all know how Shane felt. Herschel, even though Sophia wasn't in the barn, Shane still did shoot his family, and they kept coming, so he would be on his whole there is no hope thing and everything else, so Herschel's character development doesn't really change. And Shane's not going to argue with Herschel because Sophia wasn't there, except the Rick and Shane argument is still going to happen after everyone goes in the house, in a different way, of course. But this time the argument isn't over Rick almost basically killing everyone because of Sophia being out there and whatever Shane said. This time, the argument is more leaned towards the fact that even though this might be a blessing, Sophia may very well just be dead. And Rick, he ain't having this, because this should prove more than anything else, and Daryl finding the doll, that Sophia is out there. And he's just not willing to let this go, because he said to himself he failed her, and he wants to make it up to Carol and to himself that Sophia's out there and alive. He wants to bring her back and everything else. Shane's just thinking it's an utter waste of time. But of course, Rick and Glenn still have to go out and find Herschel, and that whole conversation goes the same, except Sophia isn't included in it because there's the possibility she might be alive. And Rick even tries to further prove this, and it actually sways Herschel more, because, it's the thought of a little girl being out there and alive. But before he is swayed fully into agreeing with Rick, this is when Dave and Tony, members of Randall's group and Randall's group in general, make themselves known for the first time. Now Rick, knowing that these people might not be able to be trusted, still has to try and ask these people if they've seen Sophia, because there's always the chance, and proceeds to ask both of them if they've seen a little girl with blonde hair, a headband, who was missing a doll and with a blue shirt. Now, whatever motives Dave and Tony were originally planning, we saw they drew on Rick, Glenn, and Herschel. Whatever motives they had before are slowed down by the fact that a little girl is mentioned, and this catches both of their attention and says that they haven't seen a little girl around like that, but they will help them into getting her back if they're missing them. Now, even though this seems a little too good to be true, Rick, Glenn, and Herschel are kind of glad, especially Rick, that they have more hands and more eyes to be able to look for Sophia, because the fact that she wasn't in the barn and the fact that these people, even though they haven't seen him, they could be of use, it's definitely a plus for Rick's group. But that's slowly shut down by Dave and Tony's true motives, because once Rick and them have their backs turned, they hear the clicking of guns. And sadly, Rick knows what this means. Turns around and kills the two guys like before. This would be a bit later into the episode, possibly extending it a little bit. But, yeah, as much as I don't want Randall's group to go away like this, especially in this story, I really think that they just would not care about Sophia. So Dave and Tony were doomed to die. Rick is very disappointed at this, because he truly thought that these people were here to help and everything else. And having them just turn on him, basically, after thinking that they were going to help and everything, this is the first step of true character development for Rick, because he hasn't shot Sophia and put her down. So, yeah. The rest of the Randall's group, and then Randall getting his foot impaled and everything else, that goes the same, because I don't really think anything would change that. Except, every time Rick would go to one of Randall's group, and whenever they would go up to the bar doors, Rick would keep trying to get information about Sophia, but to no avail. But he still saves Randall in just a hope that he could be only of use and help find Sophia. I'm back at Herschel's farm. Shane is still upset at the fact that Randall was brought here, and the fact that Rick and them killed 3 of Randall's people. Because if there was any hope of finding Sophia, they might have just ruined it. Because what if that group did have her? And Rick says, well, that might be a possibility. Randall here, he did not want to be a merciless killer, especially after killing 3 of the guys. He still wants to go out and find Sophia, and Randall could be the best chance. And he was going to do the same thing with Dave and Tony before they drew on him. But Randall, so far as they're concerned, is innocent. Shane shuts this down immediately, not buying any of what Rick's selling, saying that they all need to just give up at this point. He's tired of hearing Sophia might be alive, we gotta find her, and he's just growing sick of it at this point. They've been looking for God knows how long, and have not found a trace of her besides that doll. It's just pointless to keep looking. But before he can utter any more, he is slapped straight across the face. But not from Maggie this time around, because Maggie had no reason to really slap Shane here, because he didn't try and attack Herschel. But it was Carol. And she is looking dead serious at Shane right now, and tells him that while she appreciates the fact that he helped her with Ed and everything else back at the Atlanta camp, him continuously denying the fact that Sophia might be alive is just way too much to bear, and it's gonna drive everybody to fight against each other and everything else. Shane is killing this group because of what he thinks is right. And Shane, he was not expecting anybody to say this. Okay, maybe Rick, but he was not expecting this from Carol. And as impressed as he is with how Carol just stood up to him like this and everything, something he really wanted from Rick, his pride is shambled right now. Because he wasn't, like I said, he was not expecting this coming from her. And just walks away, leaving the group in utter shock and disbelief at everything that just went on. Daryl, since Sophia wasn't in the barn and everything, and seeing how Carol just stood up to Shane, this just makes him want to go out and find Sophia more, because it's starting to literally break Carol and everything else. So he remains strong in his resolve to go find her. Now, Rick and Shane still drive out to talk, except I don't think that Randall would be there, because if Rick wanted Randall to help with Sophia, he wouldn't drive him out. He would keep Randall as long as he could at the barn. So Rick and Shane are alone out here this time, and have their whole talk about Rick knowing about Shane killing Otis, and Lori and Shane being together, and Rick telling Shane that he thinks that he can't protect Lori and Carl. Basically everything, and then Shane telling about what happened at the hospital. Everything like before, except with added conversation this time around. And Shane says he doesn't want to believe that Sophia is dead out there. It's just, with everything that they went through even before this whole apocalypse happened, he just does not believe that Sophia could be out there alive. It's impossible. It's not that he doesn't want to believe it, it's hard to believe it. And he wants Rick and them to understand that. And it feels like Daryl almost died, and while it's bad that he busted open the barn and everything else, he has faults. But he just doesn't want Rick and everybody else killing themselves over a girl that could most likely be dead. And he repeats the fact that he doesn't want her to be dead. It's just hard to believe that she could be out there for this long and possibly be alive. Daryl would have probably found her if that was the case. And Rick says that Sophia, he wants to believe that Sophia's out there alive, because especially in the apocalypse, he owes it to Carol and everyone else. And the only reason Randall is around right now, too, is because he could be their best chance. And if he truly does not know anything or can't help, only then will he kill him. But until then, they have to try everything at their disposal to get her back, wherever she is. Shane, understanding this finally, and Rick finally truly making sense in his eyes, besides, calling him out for everything else about Lori and everything else, understands where Rick's coming from. So that means, since Randall also isn't there, Rick and Shane are not going to fight. Hand-to-hand fight. So, with the fight not happening, and Shane understanding Rick just a little bit more, will he attempt to kill Rick in the end, now that the dynamic between them is kind of figured out already? Or is this all just leading up to Shane truly showing his colors and trying to take Rick's group for himself? And that's where we leave things for the moment. Now, I know this kind of revolved around Rick's group in this episode. It's going to switch basically until Rick's group meets, or, finally gets back with Sophia. It's going to basically be Rick's group and Sophia being with Negan throughout the entirety of the story until they actually come face to face. Because, it's what you kind of do with the story. You kind of flip through both angles of characters. Sort of like The Walking Dead did. But I hope you guys enjoyed nonetheless with all that out of the way, and I will see you guys in the next video.